particular path and stick to it, obeying all the rules and regulations necessary for success in spiritual life. It was Lord Chaitanya's mission that he teach the path of Krishna consciousness to all men and thereby enable them to partake of the immortality of spiritual life. From Chaitanya Charitamrta, we learn how Chaitanya taught people to become immortal, and thus the title may be properly translated as the immortal character of the living force. The supreme living force is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is also the supreme entity. There are innumerable living entities, and all of them are individual. This is very easy to understand. We are all individual in thought and desires, and the Supreme Lord is also an individual person. He is different, though entities, one being can excel another in one capacity or another. The Lord is an individual, just as the living entities are individual, but he is different in that he is the supreme individual. God is also infallible, and Bhagavad Gita, he is addressed as Akyuta, which means he who never falls down. This is indicated because in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna had fallen into delusion, but Krishna had not. We often hear it said that God is infallible. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states, Nanyam gunbayo kartaram yada drishtanu pasyati gune bayascha paramviti madbhavam so dhikchati. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. Thus, we should not think that Krishna is overpowered by the material potency when he is in the material world. Krishna and his incarnations are not under the control of material nature. They are totally free. Indeed, in Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has godly nature is actually defined as one who is not affected by the modes of material nature. Although in material nature, if even a devotee can attain this freedom, then what to speak of the Supreme? The real question is, how can we remain unpolluted by material contamination while in the material world? It was Rupa Goswami who explained that we can remain uncontaminated while in the world if we simply make it our ambition to serve Krishna. One may then justifiably ask, how can I serve? Obviously, this is not simply a matter of meditation, which is just an activity of the mind, but of practical work. Love of Krishna's service can only be attained by working for Krishna. In such work, we should leave no resource unused. Whatever is there, whatever we have, should be used for Krishna. We can use everything, typewriters, automobiles, airplanes, missiles, anything. We simply speak to people about Krishna consciousness. We are also rendering service. If our minds, senses, speech, money, and energies are thus engaged in the service of Krishna, we cannot be considered to be existing in the material nature. By virtue of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, we transcend the platform of material nature. It is a fact that Krishna, his expansions and his devotees, that is those who work for him, are not in material nature, although people with poor fund of knowledge think that they are. Chaitanya Charitamrta teaches that the spirit soul is immortal and that our activities in the spiritual world are also immortal. The Mayavadis who hold to the view that the spiritual world is filled, it takes no sound. But are we water pots? How can we be compared to them? A good analogy utilizes as many similarities between two objects as possible. A water pot is not an active living force, but we are. Ever silent meditation may be adequate for a water pot, but not for us. Indeed, when one has realized he has so much to say about Krishna, 24 hours in a day are not sufficient. It is the fool who is celebrated as long as he does not speak. For when he breaks his silence, his lack of knowledge is exposed. Chaitanya Charitamrta shows that there are many wonderful things to discover by glorifying the Supreme. In the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, I offer my respects to my spiritual masters. He uses the plural here to indicate the disciplic succession. It is not that he offers obeisances to his spiritual master alone, but to the whole parampara, the chain of disciplic succession beginning with Lord Krishna himself. Thus the Guru is addressed in the plural to show the author's highest respect for all the Vaishnavas. After offering obeisances to the disciplic succession, the author pays obeisances to all other devotees, God brothers, the expansions of the Godhead, and the first manifestation of Krishna's energy. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sometimes called Krishna Chaitanya, is the embodiment of all these. He is God, Guru, devotee, and the expansion of God. As his associate Nityananda, he is the first manifestation of energy. As Advaita, he is the incarnation. As Gadadhar, he is the internal potency. And as Srivas, he is the marginal living entity. Thus, Krishna should not be thought of as being alone, but should be considered as eternally existing with all his manifestation. As described by Ramanujacharya in Visistadvaita philosophy, God's energies, expansions, and incarnations are considered to be oneness in diversity. In other words, God is not separate from all of these. Everything together is God. Actually, Chaitanya Charitamrta is not intended for the novice, for it is the postgraduate study of spiritual knowledge. Ideally, one begins with Bhagavad Gita and advances through Srimad Bhagavatam to the Chaitanya Charitamrta. Although all these great scriptures are on the same absolute level, for the sake of comparative study, Chaitanya Charitamrta is considered to be the highest platform. Every verse in it is perfectly composed. Indeed, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda are compared to the sun and the moon in that they dissipate the darkness of the material world. In this instance, both the sun and the moon have risen together, and it is proper to offer obeisances directly to Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda. In the Western world, where the glories of Lord Chaitanya are relatively unknown, one may inquire, who is Krishna Chaitanya? The scriptural conclusion in answer to the question is that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, in the Upanishads, the Supreme Absolute Truth is described in an impersonal way, but the personal aspect of the Absolute Truth is mentioned in the Ishopanishad, whereafter a description of the all-pervading, we find the following verse: Hiram mayena patrenas satyasya fitam mukham tattavam pusham aparvanu satya dharmaya drishtaye. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. Sri Ishopanishad Mantra 15. The impersonalists do not have the power to go beyond the effulgence of God and arrive at the personality from whom this effulgence is emanating. At the end of Ishopanishad, however, there is a hymn to the personality of Godhead. It is not that the impersonal Brahman is denied. It is also described, but that Brahman is considered to be the glaring effulgence of the body of Chaitanya. In other words, Krishna Chaitanya is the basis of all impersonal Brahman. It is also stated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman rests on him. Brahmano hi patishtham. The Paramatma, or Super Soul, which is present within the heart of every living entity and within every atom of the universe, is but the partial representation of Chaitanya. Krishna Chaitanya is therefore the basis of Brahman and the Supreme Personality of Godhead as well. As the Supreme, he is full in 6 opulences: wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. In short, we should know that he is Krishna, God, and nothing is equal to or greater than him. There is no superior to be conceived. He is the Supreme Person. It was Rupa Goswami, a confidential devotee, taught for more than 10 days continuously by Lord Chaitanya, who wrote, Namo Mahavandaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Nami Gaura Tivise Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is more magnanimous than any other avatar, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given, pure love of Krishna. It is not that Chaitanya teaches a long and elaborate path to God realization. He is completely spiritual, and he begins from the point of surrender to Krishna. He does not pursue the paths of Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Hatha Yoga, but begins at the end of material existence. At that point where one gives up all material attachment, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna began his teachings by distinguishing the soul from matter, and in the 18th chapter concluded that the point where the soul surrenders to him in devotion, the Mayavadis would have all talk cease there. But at that point, the real discussion only begins. It is the Vedanta Sutra which begins, Atato Brahma Janasa. Now let us begin to inquire about the Supreme Absolute Truth. Rupa Goswami thus praises Chaitanya as the most magnificent incarnation of all, for he gives the greatest gift by indicating the highest form of devotional service. In other words, he answers the most important inquiries that anyone can make. There are different stages of devotional service and God realization. Strictly speaking, anyone who accepts the existence of God is situated in devotional service. To acknowledge that God is great is something, but not much. Chaitanya, preaching as an acharya, a great teacher, taught that we can enter into a relationship with God and actually become God's friend. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna showed Arjuna his universal form because Arjuna was his very dear friend. Upon seeing Krishna as the Lord of the universe, however, Arjuna actually asked Krishna to forgive the familiarity of his friendship. Chaitanya goes beyond this point. Through Lord Chaitanya, we can become friends with Krishna, and there is no limit to this friendship. We can become friends of Krishna, not in awe or adoration, but in complete freedom. We can even relate to God as his Father. This is not only the philosophy of Chaitanya Charitamrta, but of Srimad Bhagavatam as well. There are no other literatures in the world in which God is treated as the son of a devotee. Usually God is seen as the Almighty Father who supplies the demands of his sons. The great devotees, however, sometimes treat God as a son in their execution of devotional service. The son demands and the father supplies. And in supplying Krishna, a devotee becomes like a father. Instead of taking from God, we give to God. It was in this relationship that Krishna's mother, Yashoda, told the Lord, "Here, eat this, or you'll die. Eat nicely." In this way, Krishna, although the proprietor of everything, depends on the mercy of his devotees. This is a uniquely high level of friendship in which the devotee actually believes himself to be the father of Krishna. However, Lord Chaitanya's greatest gift was his teaching that Krishna can actually treated as one's lover. In this relationship, the Lord is so much attached that he expresses his inability to reciprocate. Krishna was so obliged to the gopis, the cowherd girls of Vrindavan, that he felt unable to return their love. I cannot repay your love, he told them. I have no more assets to return. Thus devotional service is performed on the excellent platform and knowledge of the devotee's relationship to Krishna as lover and beloved was given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was never given by any previous incarnations of Acharya. Thus Rupa Goswami wrote of Chaitanya. Devotional service itself is the highest platform, the glorious platform which you have contributed. You are Krishna in a yellow complexion, and you are Sachidananda, the son of Mother Sachi. Those who hear Chaitanya Charitamrta will keep you in their hearts. It will be easy to understand Krishna through you. Thus Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to deliver Krishna. His method of deliverance was not meditation, fruitive activities, or scriptural study, but love. We have often heard the phrase love of Godhead. How far this love of Godhead can actually be developed can be learned from the Vaishnava philosophy. Theoretical knowledge of love of God can be found in many places and in many scriptures, but what that love of Godhead actually is and how it is developed can be found in the Vaishnava literatures. It is the unique and highest development of love of God that is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even in this material world, we can have a little sense of love. How is that possible? It is due to the love which is found in Godhead. Whatever we find within our experience, within this conditional life, is situated in the Supreme Lord, who is the ultimate source of everything. In our original relationship with the Supreme Lord, there is real love, and that love is reflected pervertedly through material conditions. Our real love is continuous and unending, but because that love is reflected pervertedly in this material world, it lacks continuity and is invariating. If we want real transcendental love, we have to transfer our love to the supreme lovable object, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. In material consciousness, we are trying to love that which is not at all lovable. We give our love to dogs and cats, running the risk that at time of death we may think of them and consequently take birth in a family of cats and dogs. Thus a love that does not have Krishna as its object leads downwards. It is not that Krishna or God is something obscure or something that only a few chosen people can attain. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informs us that in every country and in every scripture there is some hint of love of Godhead. Unfortunately, no one knows what love of Godhead actually is. The Vedic scriptures, however, are different in that they can direct the individual in the proper way to love God. Other scriptures do not give information on how one can love God, nor do they actually define or describe what or who the Godhead actually is. Although they officially promote love of Godhead, they have no idea how to execute it. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives a practical demonstration of how to love God. In a conjugal relationship, taking the part of Radharani, Chaitanya tries to love Krishna as Radharani loved him. Krishna was always amazed by Radharani's love. How does Radharani give me such pleasure? He would ask. In order to study Radharani, Krishna lived in her role and tried to understand himself. This is the secret of Lord Chaitanya's incarnation. Chaitanya is Krishna, but he has taken the mode or role of Radharani to show us how to love Krishna. Thus he is addressed, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord who is absorbed in Radharani's thoughts. This brings up the question of who Radharani is and what Radha Krishna is actually. Radha Krishna is the exchange of love. This is not ordinary love. Krishna has immense potencies, of which three are principal: internal, external, and marginal. In the internal potency, there are three divisions: Samvit, Haldini, and Sandini. The Haldini potency is a pleasure potency. All living entities have this pleasure-seeking potency, for all beings are trying to have pleasure. This is the very nature of the living entity. At present, we are trying to enjoy our pleasure potency by means of the body in this material condition. By bodily contact, we are attempting to derive pleasures from material sense objects. We should not think, however, that Krishna, who is always spiritual, tries to seek pleasure on this material plane like us. Krishna describes the material universe as non-permanent place full of miseries. Why then would he seek pleasure in the material form? He is the super soul, the supreme spirit, and his pleasure is beyond the material conception. In order to learn how Krishna's pleasure can be obtained, we must read the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Krishna's pleasure potency is displayed in his pastimes with Radharani and the damsels of Raja. Unfortunately, unintelligent people turn at once to the sports of Krishna. In the Dhamsa Skanda, the 10th canto, Krishna embracing Radharani or his dancing with the cowherd girls in the rasa dance are generally not understood by ordinary men, because they consider these pastimes in the light of mundane lust. They incorrectly think that Krishna is like themselves and that he embraces the gopis just as an ordinary man embraces a young girl. Some people thus become interested in Krishna because they think that his religion always indulgence in sex. This is not Krishna Bhakti, love of Krishna, but prakrita sahajiya, materialistic lust. In order to avoid such errors, we should understand that Radha Krishna actually is. Radha and Krishna displays their pastimes through Krishna's internal energy. The pleasure potency of Krishna's internal energy is a most difficult subject matter, and unless one understands that Krishna is, he cannot understand it. Krishna does not take any pleasure in this material world, but he has a pleasure potency. Because we are part and parcel of Krishna, the pleasure potency is within us also, but we are trying to exhibit that pleasure potency in matter. Krishna, however, does not make such a vain attempt. The object of Krishna's pleasure potency is Radharani, and he exhibits his potency or his energy as Radharani, and then engages in loving affairs with her. In other words, Krishna does not take pleasure in this external energy, but exhibits his internal energy, his pleasure potency, as Radharani. Thus Krishna manifests himself as Radharani in order to exhibit his internal pleasure potency of the many extensions and expansions and incarnations of the Lord. This pleasure potency is the foremost and chief. It is not that Radharani is separate from Krishna. Radharani is also Krishna, for there is no difference between the energy and the energetic. Without energy, there is no meaning to the energetic. And without the energetic, there is no energy. Similarly, without Radha, there is no meaning of Krishna. And without Krishna, there is no meaning to Radha. Because of this, the Vaishnava philosophy, first of all, pays obeisances to and worships the internal pleasure potency of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the Lord and his potency are always referred to as Radha Krishna. Similarly, those who worship the name of Narayan, first of all, utter the name of Lakshmi as Lakshmi Narayan. Similarly, those who worship Lord Rama, first of all, utter the name of Sita. In any case, Sita Rama, Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, the potency always comes first. Radha and Krishna are one. And when Krishna desires to enjoy pleasure, he manifests himself as Radharani. The spiritual exchange of love between Radha and Krishna is the actual display of the internal pleasure potency of Krishna. Although we speak of when Krishna desires, just when he did desire, we cannot say. We only speak in this way because in conditional life we take it that everything has a beginning. However, in the absolute or spiritual life there is neither beginning nor end. Yet in order to understand that Radha and Krishna are one and that they also become divided, the question of when automatically comes to the mind. When Krishna desired to enjoy his pleasure potency, he manifested himself in the separate form of Radharani. And when he wanted to understand himself through the agency of Radha, he united with Radharani. And that unification is called Lord Chaitanya. Why did Krishna assume the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? It is explained that Krishna desired to know the glory of Radha's love. Why is she so much in love with me? Krishna asked. What is my special qualification that attracts her so? And what is the actual way in which she loves me? It seems strange that Krishna, as the Supreme, should be attracted by anyone's love. We search after the love of woman or a man because we are imperfect and lack something. The love of a woman, that potency and pleasure is absent in man, and therefore a man wants a woman. But this is not the case with Krishna, who is full in himself. Thus Krishna expressed surprise. Why am I attracted by Radharani? And when Radharani feels my love, what is she actually feeling? In order to taste the essence of the loving affair, Krishna appeared just as the moon appears on the horizon of the sea. Just as the moon was produced by the churning of the sea, by the churning of spiritual love affairs, the moon of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Indeed, Chaitanya's complexion was golden, just like the moon. Although this is figurative language, it conveys the meaning behind the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The full significance of his appearance will be explained in later chapters. The manifestations of the Supreme are also explained in Chaitanya Charitamrta. After offering respects to Lord Chaitanya, Krishnadas Kaviraj next offers them to Nityananda. He explains that Nityananda is a manifestation of Sankarshan, who is the origin of Mahavishnu. Krishna's first manifestation is Balaram, and then Sankarshan, and after Sankarshana, he is manifest as Pradyumna. In this way, so many expansions take place. Although there are many expansions, Lord Sri Krishna is the origin as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. He is like the original candle from which many thousands of millions of candles are lit. Although any number of candles can be lighted, the original candle still retains its identity as the origin. In this way, Krishna expands himself into so many lights, and all these expansions are called Vishnu Tattva. Vishnu is large light, and we are small lights, but all are expansions of Krishna. When it is necessary to create the material universe, Vishnu expands himself as Mahavishnu. This Mahavishnu lies down in the causal ocean and breathes all the universes from his nostrils. Thus from Mahavishnu and the causal ocean, all the universes spring, and all these universes float in the causal ocean. In this regard, there is the story of Vamana, who, when he took 3 steps, stuck his foot through the covering of the universe. Water from the causal ocean flowed through the hole which his foot made, and it is said that the flow of water became the river Ganges. Therefore, the Ganges is accepted as the most sacred water of Vishnu and is worshipped by all Hindus from the Himalayas down to the Bay of Bengal. That Mahavishnu who lies on the causal ocean is actually an expansion of Balaram, who is Krishna's first expansion. And in the Vrindavan pastimes, is the brother of Krishna. In the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, the word Rama refers to Balaram. Since Nityananda is an expansion of Balarama, Rama also refers to Lord Nityananda. Thus, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama addresses not only Krishna and Balaram, but Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda as well. The subject matter of Chaitanya Charitamrta primarily deals with what is beyond this material creation. The cosmic material expansion is called Maya, because it has no eternal existence, because it is sometimes manifested and sometimes not manifested. It is regarded as illusory. But beyond the temporary manifestations, there is higher nature, as indicated in Bhagavad Gita. Parastasmattu bhavonayo vyakto vyakat sanatana yasha sarvesyo bhutesu nasyatsu na vinasyati. Yet there is another nature which is eternal and transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is the supreme, and it is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. The supreme nature is beyond the manifested, Vaikuntha, and unmanifested, Avyakta. The superior nature, which is beyond both creation and annihilation, is the living force which is manifest in the bodies of all living entities. The body itself is composed of inferior nature, matter, but it is the superior nature that is moving the body. The symptom of the superior nature is consciousness. Thus, in the spiritual world, where everything is composed of the superior nature, everything is conscious. In the material world, inanimate objects are not conscious. But in the spiritual world, this is not so. There a table is conscious. The land is conscious. The trees are conscious. Everything is conscious. It is not possible to imagine how far this material manifestation extends. In the material world, everything is calculated by imagination or by some imperfect method. But Vedic literature gives information of what lies beyond the material universe. Those who believe in experimental knowledge may doubt that Vedic conclusions, for they cannot even calculate how far this universe is extended, nor can they reach far into the universe itself. It is not possible to obtain information of anything beyond this material nature by experimental means. That which is beyond our power of conception is called achintya, inconceivable. It is useless to argue or speculate about what is inconceivable. If it is truly inconceivable, it is not subject to speculation or experimentation. Our energy is limited, and our sense of perception is limited. Therefore, we must rely on the Vedic conclusions regarding that subject matter which is inconceivable. Knowledge of the superior nature must simply be accepted without argument. How is it possible to argue about something to which we have no access? The method for understanding transcendental subject matter is given by Lord Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna at the beginning of the 4th chapter, Imam vivasvate yogam prokritavam aham avyayam vivasvan manave praha amanor ikva I instructed the imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikvasu. This is the method of parampara, or disciplic succession. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna impaired knowledge onto the heart of Brahma, the first created creature within the universe. Brahma imparted those lessons to his disciple, Narada, and Narada imparted that knowledge to his disciple, Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva imparted it to Madhvacharya. And from Madhvacharya, the knowledge comes down to Madhavendra Puri, to Ishvara Puri, and from him Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One may ask that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, then why did he need a spiritual master? Well, of course he did not need a spiritual master, but because he was playing the role of Acharya, one who teaches by example, he accepted a spiritual master. Even Krishna himself accepted a spiritual master, for that is the system. In this way the Lord sets the example for men. We should not think, however, that the Lord takes a spiritual master because he is in want of knowledge. He is simply stressing the importance of accepting the disciplic succession. The knowledge of that disciplic succession actually comes from Lord himself. And if the knowledge descends unbroken, it is perfect. Although we may not be in touch with the original personality who first imparted the knowledge, we may receive the same knowledge through the process of transmission. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that Krishna, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, transmitted transcendental knowledge into the heart of Brahma. This then is one-way knowledge is received through the heart. Thus, there are two processes by which one may receive knowledge. One depends upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated as the Supersoul within the heart of all living entities, and the other depends upon the Guru or spiritual master, who is an expansion of Krishna. Thus, Krishna transmits information both from within, from without. We simply have to receive it. If knowledge is received in this way, it doesn't matter whether it is inconceivable or not. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a great deal of information given about the Vaikuntha planetary systems, which are beyond the material universe. Similarly, a great deal of inconceivable information is given in Chaitanya Charitamrta. Any attempt to arrive at this information through experimental knowledge is not possible. The knowledge simply has to be accepted. According to the Vedic method, sabda, or transcendental sound, is regarded as evidence. Sound is very important in Vedic understanding for it. For if it is pure, it is accepted as authoritative. Even in the material world, we accept a great deal of information which is sent thousands of miles by telephone or radio. In this way, we also accept sound as evidence in our daily lives. Although we cannot see the informant, we accept his information as valid on the basis of sound. Sound vibration then is very important in the transmission of Vedic knowledge. The Vedas inform us that beyond this cosmic manifestation, there are extensive planets and the spiritual sky. This material manifestation is regarded as only a small portion of the total creation. The material manifestation includes not only this universe, but innumerable others as well. But all the material universes combined comprises only one fraction of the total creation. The majority of the creation is situated in the spiritual sky. In that sky, innumerable planets float, and these are called the Vaikuntha Lokas. In every Vaikuntha Loka, Narayan presides in the form of his four-armed expansions: Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva. As stated before, the material universes are manifested by the Lord in the form of Mahavishnu. Just as a husband and wife combine to beget offspring, the Mahavishnu combines with his wife Maya, or material nature. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna states, Sarvam Janesyu Kuntiya Murtaya Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahma Mahadyonir Aham Bija Pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. Vishnu impregnated Maya, or material nature, simply by glancing at her. This is a spiritual method. Materially, we are limited to impregnate by only one particular part of our body. But the Supreme Lord Krishna or Mahavishnu can impregnate any part by any part, simply by glancing. The Lord can conceive countless living entities in the womb of material nature. The Brahma Samhita also confirms that the spiritual body of the Supreme Lord is so powerful that any part of that body can perform the functions of any other part. We can only touch with our hands or skin, but Krishna can touch just by glancing. We can only see with our eyes. We cannot touch or smell with them. Krishna, however, can smell and also eat with his eyes. When foodstuffs are offered to Krishna, we don't see him eating, but he eats simply by glancing at the food. We cannot imagine how things work in the spiritual world. Where everything is spiritual, it is not that Krishna does not eat, or that we imagine that he eats. He actually eats, but his eating is different from ours. Our eating process will be similar to his when we are completely on the spiritual platform. On that platform, every part of the body can act on behalf of any other part. Vishnu does not require anything in order to create. He does not require the goddess Lakshmi in order to give birth to Brahma. For Brahma is born from a lotus flower which grows from the navel of Vishnu. The goddess Lakshmi sits at the feet of Vishnu and serves him. In this material world, sex is required to produce children, but in the spiritual world, one can produce as many children as he likes without having to take help from his wife. Because we have no experience with spiritual energy, we think that Brahma's birth from the navel of Vishnu is simply a fictional story. We are not aware that spiritual energy is so powerful that it can do anything and everything. Material energy is dependent on certain laws, but spiritual energy is fully independent. Brahma is born from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is but a partial manifestation of Mahavishnu. Countless universes resides like the seas with the skin pores of Mahavishnu, and when he exhales, they all are manifest. In the material world, we have no experience of such things, but we do experience a perverted reflection in the phenomenon of perspiration. We cannot imagine, however, the duration of one breath of Mahavishnu, for within one breath of all the universes are created and annihilated. Lord Brahma only lives for the duration of one breath, and according to our time scale. Four, 4,320,000,000 years constitute only 12 hours of Brahma, and Brahma lives 100 of his years, yet the whole life of Brahma is contained within one breath of Mahavishnu. Thus it is not possible for us to imagine the breathing power of the Supreme Lord. That Mahavishnu is but a partial manifestation of Krishna. Thus, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami discusses Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Lord Nityananda as Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna. Advaitacharya, another principal disciple of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, is accepted as an expansion of Mahavishnu. Thus, Advaitacharya is also the Lord, or more precisely, an expansion of the Lord. The word Advaita means non-dual, and his name is such because he is non-different. Advaitacharya appeared just to distribute the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Thus, he is also the Lord incarnated as a devotee. Krishna is manifested in 5 different expansions, and he and all of his associates appear as devotees of the Supreme Lord in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Advaitacharya, Garadha, Srivas, and others. In all cases, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the source of energy, for all his devotees. Since this is the case, if we take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the successful execution of Krishna consciousness, we are sure to make progress. One devotional song by Narottam Das Thakur states, "My dear Lord Chaitanya, please have mercy upon me. There is no one who is merciful as you. My plea is most urgent, because your mission is to deliver fallen souls, and no one is more fallen than I. I beg priority." The author of Chaitanya Charitamrta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, was an inhabitant of Vrindavan and a great devotee. He had been living with his family in Katwa, a small town in the district of Burdwan in Bengal. His family also worshipped Radha Krishna, and once when there was some misunderstanding amongst his families about devotional service, Krishnadas Kaviraj was advised by Nityananda Prabhu in a dream to leave home and go to Vrindavan. Although he was very old, he started out that very night and went to live in Vrindavan. While he was there, he met some of the Goswamis, principal disciples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was requested to write Chaitanya Charitamrta by the devotees of Vrindavan. Although he began this work at a very old age, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, he finished it. Today, it remains the most authoritative book on Chaitanya's philosophy and life. When Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was living in Vrindavan, there were not very many temples at that time. Madana Mohana, Govindaji, Gopinath were the three principal temples. As a resident of Vrindavan, he offered his respects to the deities in these temples and requested God's favor. My progress in spiritual life is very slow, so I am asking your help. In Chaitanya Charitamrta, Krishnadas first offers his obeisances to Madana Mohan Vigraha, the deity who can help us progress in Krishna consciousness. In the execution of Krishna consciousness, our first business is to know Krishna and our relationship with him. To know Krishna is to know oneself, and to know oneself is to know one's relationship with Krishna. Since the relationship can be learned by worshipping Madana Mohan Vigraha, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami first establishes his relationship with him. When this is established, Krishnadas begins to worship the functional deity, Govinda. Govinda resides eternally in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world of Vrindavan. The buildings are made of touchstone. The cows are known as Surabhi, cows givers of abundant milk, and the trees are known as wish-fulfilling trees, for they yield whatever one desires. In Vrindavan, Krishna herds the Surabhi cows, and he is worshipped by hundreds and thousands of gopis, cowherd girls, who are all goddesses of fortune. When Krishna descends to the material world, this same Vrindavan descends, just as an entourage accompanies an important personage. Because when Krishna comes, his land also comes. Vrindavan is not considered to exist in the material world. Therefore, devotees take shelter of Vrindavan in India, for it is considered to be a replica of the original Vrindavan. Although one may complain that no kalpa-vriksha wish-fulfilling trees exist there, when Goswamis were there, the kalpa-vriksha were present. It is not that one can simply go to such a tree and make demands. One must first become a devotee. The Goswamis would live under a tree for one night only, and the trees would satisfy all their desires. For the common man, this may all seem to be very wonderful, but as one makes progress in devotional service, all this can be realized. Vrindavan is actually experienced as it is by persons who have stopped trying to derive pleasure from material enjoyment. When will my mind become cleansed of all hankering for material enjoyment, so I will be able to see Vrindavan? One devotee asks, the more Krishna conscious we become and the more we advance, the more everything is revealed as spiritual. Thus, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami considered Vrindavan in India to be as good as Vrindavan in the spiritual sky. And in Chaitanya Charitamrta, he describes Radharani and Krishna as seated beneath a wish-fulfilling tree in Vrindavan, on a throne decorated with valuable jewels. There, Krishna's dear friends, the cowherd boys, and the gopis serve Radha and Krishna by singing, dancing, offering betel nuts and refreshments, and decorating their lordships with flowers. Even today in India, people decorate thrones and recreate the scene during the month of July. Generally, at that time, people go to Vrindavan to offer their respects to the deities there. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami maintains that the Radha and Krishna deities show us how to serve Radha and Krishna. The Madana Mohan deities simply establish that I am your eternal servant. With Govinda, however, there is actual acceptance of service, and therefore he is called the functional deity. The Gopinath deity is Krishna as master and proprietor of the gopis. He attracted all the gopis, all the cowherd girls, by the sound of his flute, and when they come, he danced with them. These activities are all described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. These gopis are married by the age of 12. The boys, however, are not married before 18, so Krishna, who was 15 or 16 at the time, was not married. Nonetheless, he called these girls from their homes and invited them to dance with him. That dance is called the Rasa Leela dance, and it is the most elevated of all the Vrindavan pastimes. Krishna is therefore called Gopinath because he is the beloved master of the gopis. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami petitions the blessings of Lord Gopinath. May that Gopinath, the master of the gopis, Krishna, bless you. May you become blessed by Gopinath, just as Krishna attracted the gopis by the sweet sound of his flute. The author of Chaitanya Charitamrta prays that he will also attract the reader's mind by his transcendental vibration. Jai. Okay. Now we're going to begin. Adilila chapter 1. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than the combined form of Sri Radha and Krishna. He is the life of those devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami are the two principal followers of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, who acted as the most confidential servitor of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Known as Vishvambar in his early life, a direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami was Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, stands as a direct disciple of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. The direct disciple of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who accepted Srila Visvanath Chakravarti as his servitor. Srila Visvanath Chakravarti Thakur accepted Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, who initiated Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who in turn initiated Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. The spiritual master of Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the divine master of our humble self. Since we belong to the chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains, but only remnants of foodstuffs originally eaten by the Lord himself. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not belong to the mundane plane of three qualitative modes. He belongs to the transcendental plane beyond the reach of the imperfect sense perception of a living being. Even the most erudite, mundane scholar cannot approach the transcendental plane unless he submits himself to transcendental sound with receptive mood. For in that mood only can one realize the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What will be described herein, therefore, has nothing to do with the experimental thoughts created by speculative habits of inert minds. The subject matter of this book is not a mental concoction. but is factual spiritual experience that one can realize only by accepting the line of disciplic succession described above. Any deviation from that line will bewilder the reader's understanding of the mystery of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, which is transcendental literature meant for the postgraduate study of one who has realized all Vedic literatures such as the Upanishads, the Vedanta, and their natural commentaries, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. This edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta is presented for the study of sincere scholars who are really seeking the absolute truth. It is not the arrogant scholarship of mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of a superior authority whose service is the life and soul of this humble effort. It does not deviate even slightly from the revealed scripture, and therefore anyone who follows the disciplic line will be able to realize the essence of this book simply by the method of oral reception. The first chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta begins with the 14 Sanskrit verses that describe the absolute truth. Then the next 3 Sanskrit verses describe the principal deities of Vrindavan, namely Sri Radhana Madana Mohan, Sri Radha Govinda Deva, and Sri Radha Gopinathji. The first of the 14 verses is a symbolic representation of the supreme truth, and the entire first chapter is in actuality devoted to the single verse, which describes Lord Chaitanya in his 6 different transcendental expansions. The first manifestation described is the spiritual master, who appears in 2 plenary parts called the initiating spiritual master and the instructing spiritual master. They are identical because both of them are phenomenal manifestations of the supreme truth. Next described are the devotees, who are divided into 2 classes, namely the apprentices and the graduates. Next are the incarnations, avatars of the Lord, who are explained to be the non-different from the Lord. These incarnations are considered in 3 divisions: incarnations of the potency of the Lord, incarnations of his qualities, and incarnations of his authority. In this connection, Lord Sri Krishna's direct manifestation and his manifestations for transcendental pastimes are discussed. Next considered are the potencies of the Lord, of which 3 principal manifestations are described: the consorts in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, the queens of Dwarkadam, the highest of all the damsels of Vrajadam. Finally, there is the Supreme Lord himself, who is the fountainhead of all these manifestations. Lord Sri Krishna and his plenary expansions are all in the category of the Lord himself, the energetic absolute truth, whereas his devotees, his eternal associates, are his energies. The energy and energetic are fundamentally one, but since their functions are differently exhibited, they are simultaneously different also. Thus, the absolute truth is manifested in diversity in one unit. This philosophical truth, which is pursuant to Vedanta Sutras, is called Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, or the conception of simultaneously oneness and indifference. In the later portions of this chapter, the transcendental position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and that of Srila Nityananda Prabhu are described with reference to the above theistic facts. Vande Gurum Isha Bhaktan Isham Ishva Tarakan Tat Paraka Samschatak Chakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjanakam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself. Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahadito Gaudhaudyo Paspavanantu Chitrao Sandhu Tampunadu. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gaura to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benedictions upon all. Yad advaitam brahmano panishadhi tad api asya tanubaha ya atmanatar yami purusha iti su syamasya vibhava sad aivisvarya purno ya iha bhagavansa swayamagyam na chaitanyat Krishna jagati paratatvam paramiha. What the Upanishads describe as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body, and the Lord known as a supersoul is but his localized plenary portion. He is the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. Anarpita charam chirat karunayana tirnaha kalu samarpayitam unantyajovayam rasam sava bhakti shriyayam Hari Purata Sundara Duyata Kadamba Sandirpitaha Sada Hridaya Kandare Svaratuva Sachinandana. May the Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachidevi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow knowledge of the mellow taste of his service. Radha Krishna Pranayam Viktan Haladini Shakti Rasmat Ekad Madhvapi Bhuve Pura Deha Bedham Gato Tau Chaitanya yakyam praktam adhuna tad dvayam chakyam aptam radha bhavadviti savalalitam naumi Krishna sarvarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these 2 transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Sri Radhaya Pranayam Mahima Kidrasho Vanyayaiva Sadhyayo Jana Bhuto Madhurimam Kitroso Va Madhyaye Sakyayam Chasyamad Anubhavataha Kidrasam Viti Lobahat Tad Bhavadyaya Samjani Sach Garpada Sindhu Harinandu. Desiring to understand the glory of Radharani's love, the wonderful qualities in him, that she alone relishes through her love, and the happiness she feels when she realizes the sweetness of his love. The Supreme Lord Hari, richly endowed with her emotions, appears from the womb of Srimati Sachidevi as the moon appears from the ocean. Sankarsana karanatayusai garbhadoshai cha payo vidhisai sesasya jasmasya kalu sanitya nandhanakya radma saranam namastu. May Sri Nityananda Rama be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sheshanag and Vishnu, who lies on the Karna ocean, Garbha ocean, and the ocean of milk, are his planary portions, and the portions of his planary portions. Mayatiti vidyapi vaikuntana loke Purnaisvarya Shri Chaturvyuka Madhyaye Rupam Yasyod Bhati Sankarsanaya Yoyam Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadyaye. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Shri Nityananda Rama, who is known as Sankarshan in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisted of the Vasudev, Sankarshan, Prajunya, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in the Vaikuntha Lok, for far beyond this material creation. Maya Bharata Janda Sangha Harsayanga Sete Saksat Karanam Budhi Madhyahe Yasya Kamsa Shri Pumam Adidevas Tam Shri Nityananda Ramadam Pradadyaye. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Rama, whose partial representations called Karna Dokashai Vishnu, lying on a Karna ocean, is the original Purusha, the master of the illusory energy and the shelter of all the universes. Yasya samasa srilagharbo dhaosayai yannabhi abhyam loka shangata nalam loka shashtu sutika dhama dhutas tam Sri Nityananda Ramam prapadyaye. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Rama, a partial part of whom is Garbhodakashai Vishnu. From the navel of Garbhodakashai Vishnu sprouts the lotus, that is the birthplace of Brahma, the engineer of the universe. The stem of the lotus is the resting place of the multitude of planets. Yasya samsa pratamokulinam poshta Vishnu bhati dugdhabdisaye sauni bhartayat kala sapayai anantas tam Sri Nityananda Ramam pradyat prapapatye. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Rama, whose secondary part is the Vishnu lying in the ocean of milk. That Kshirodakashaya Vishnu is the supersoul of all living entities, and the maintainer of all the universes. Sheshanag is his further sub-part. Mahavishnu Jagat Karata Mayaya Shrito Yadha Tasyadvatara Evayam Advaitacharya Ishvaram. Lord Advaitacharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Advaitam harinandvaita akrayam bhakti samsanat bhakta tattva taram isham tam advaita charam asraye. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Akraya. Advaita Charya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotees. Therefore, I take shelter of him. Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktagyam Nami Bhakti Shaktikam. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is non-different from his features as devotee. Devotional incarnation, devotional manifestation, pure devotee, and devotional energy. Jayato sarto pangor mama mandir matirgati matsarva sarpadam bojo radhan madana mohano. Glory to the all-merciful Radha and Madana Mohana. I am lame and ill-advised, yet they are my directors, and their lotus feet are everything to me. Divya Vrindaya Kalpadharmas Dramastu Srimad Ratnangarasi Masanastu Srimad Ratna Shila Govinda Devu Prestalavi Sevasarami. In a temple of jewels in Vrindavan, underneath a desire tree, Sri Sri Radha Govind, served by their most confidential associates, sit upon the uneffulgent throne. I offer my humble obeisances unto them. Shriman Rasara Sambhivam Sivatatata Sitaha Karsameno Sober Gopi Gopinata Sriyastu Naha. Srila Gopinath, who originated the transcendental mellows of rasa dance, stands on the shore in Vamsivata and attracts the attention of the cowherd damsels with the sounds of his celebrated flute. May they all confer upon us their benediction. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Glory to Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda. Glory to Advaita Chandra. And glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. Etina Thakura Ghodiyaka Karyachena Atmasat Eitanira Charana Vandano Tina Moranata. These three deities of Vrindavan, Madana Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of the Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. Purport. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta offers his respectful obeisances unto the three deities of Vrindavan, named Sri Radha Mohan, Sri Radha Govindadev, and Sri Radha Gopinathji. These three deities are the life and soul of the Bengali Vaishnavas, or Gaudiya Vaishnavas, who have a natural aptitude for residing in Vrindavan. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, who are fully strictly in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, worship the divinity by chanting transcendental sounds. Meant to develop the senses of one's transcendental relationship with the Supreme Lord, a reciprocation of mellows, rasas, of mutual affection, and ultimately the achievement of the desired success in loving service. These three deities are worshipped in three different stages of one's development. The followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu scrupulously follow these principles of approach. Gaudiya Vaishnavas perceive the ultimate objective in the Vedic hymns composed of 18 transcendental letters that adore Krishna as Madana Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath Vallabha. Madana Mohan is he who charms Cupid, the god of love. Govinda is he who pleases the senses, and the cows of and Gopinath Vallabha is the transcendental lover of the gopis. Krishna himself is called Madana Mohana, Govinda Gopinath Vallabha, and countless other names, as he plays in his different pastimes with his devotees. The three deities, Madana Mohana, Govinda, and Gopinath Vallabha, have very specific qualities. Worship of Madana Mohan is on the platform of re-establishing our forgotten relationship with the personality of Godhead. In the material world, we are presently in utter ignorance of our eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Panga refers to one who cannot move independently by his own strength. And Mandamati is one who is less intelligent because he is too absorbed in materialistic activities. It is best for such persons not to aspire for success in fruitive activities or mental speculation, but instead simply to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The perfection of life is simply to surrender to the Supreme. In the beginning of our spiritual life, we must therefore worship Madana Mohan, so that he may attract us and nullify our attachment for material sense gratification. This relationship with Madana Mohan is necessary for neophyte devotees. When one wishes to render service to the Lord with strong attachment, one then worships Govinda on the platform of transcendental service. Govinda is the reservoir of all. Is the reservoir of all pleasures. When by the grace of Krishna and the devotees one reaches perfection in devotional service, he can appreciate Krishna as Gopi Jana Vallabha, the pleasure deity of the damsels of Vraja. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this mode of devotional service in 3 stages, and therefore those worshipable deities were installed in Vrindavana by different Goswamis. They are very dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas there, who visit the temples at least once a day. Besides the temples of these 3 deities, many other temples have been established in Vrindavan, such as the temple of Radha Damodar, of Jiva Goswamis, the temples of Syama Sundara, of Syamananda Goswami, the temple of Gokulananda, of Loknath Goswami, and the temple of Radharamana, Gopalabhata Goswami. There are 7 principal temples over 400 years old that are the most important of the 5,000 temples now existing in Vrindavan. Gaudiya indicates the part of India between the southern side of the Himalayan mountains and the northern part of the Vidya hills, which is called Aryavarta, or the Lord of the Aryans. This portion of India is divided into 5 parts or provinces: Pancha Gaura Desh, Sarvashtra, Kashmir, and Punjab, Kanja Kubja, Uttar Pradesh, including the modern city of Lucknow, Madhya Gauda, Madhya Pradesh, Maithila, Bihar, and parts of Bengal, and Utkala, part of Bengal, and the whole Orissa, Bengal, is sometimes called Gauda Desh, partly because it forms a portion of Maithila, and partly because the capital of the Hindu king, Raja Lakshmana Sen, was known as Gauda. This old capital letter came to be known as Gaurapura, and gradually Mayapur. The devotees of Orissa are called Udiyas. The devotees of Bengal are called Gaudiyas, and the devotees of southern India are known as Dravidi devotees. As there are 5 provinces in Aryavrata, so Dakshinatya, southern India, is also divided into 5 provinces, which are called Pancha Dravida, the 4 Vaishnava acharyas, who are the great authorities of the 4 Vaishnava disciplic successions, as well as Sripada Sankaracharya of the Mayavad school, appeared in the Pancha Dravida provinces. Among the 4 Vaishnava acharyas, who are all accepted by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Sri Ramanujacharya appeared in the southern part of Andhra Pradesh and Mahabhuta Puri. Sri Madhva Acharya appeared at Pajakam near Vimangiri. In the district of Mayangalora, Sri Vishnu Swami appeared at Pandya. Sri Nimbarka appeared at Mungera Patna in the extreme south. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the chain of disciplic succession from Madhvacharya. But the Vaishnavas in this line do not accept the Tattvavadis, who also claim to belong to the Madhva Sampradaya. To distinguish themselves clearly from the Tattvavadi branch of Madhva's descendants, the Vaishnavas of Bengal prefer to call themselves Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sri Madhvacharya is also known as Sri Gauda Puranananda. Therefore, the name Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya is quite suitable for the disciplic succession of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, accepted initiation in the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Grantira Arambhikari Mangala Charana Gaura Vaishnava Bhagwan Dinera Smarana. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Dinera Smarana Haya Vigana Vinsana Anyasi Haya Nija Vanchita Purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Se Mangalacharana Haya Trivida Prakara Vastur Nirdesha Ashvrada Namaskara. The invocation involves 3 processes, defining the objective offering, benedictions, and offering obeisances. Pratma dhui shloka ishta deva namaskara samanya vishvesha rupa dvaitat prakara. The first 2 verses offer respectful obeisances generally and specifically to the Lord, who is the object of worship. Tritiya shlokte kari vastura nirdesha Yaha hoite jani para tatvera udesha. In the 3rd verse, I indicate the absolute truth, who is the ultimate substance. With such a description, one can visualize the supreme truth. Chatura shlokite kari jagate asrivada sarvatra magya Krishna Chaitanya Prasada.
You do great service, everybody's listening.
Krishna.
This is ginger,
Sure.
tea, and this water.
Sure.
You're doing great service.
In the 4th verse, I have invoked the benediction of the Lord upon all the world, praying to Lord Chaitanya for his mercy upon all. Shesh loke kahi banyana vantara karana, panchashashta shloka kahi mula prayajona. In that verse, I have also explained the external reason for Lord Chaitanya's incarnation. But in the 5th and 6th verse, I have explained the prime reason for his advent. Echaya shloke kahi chaitanyara tattva ara pancha shloke nitya nandira mahatva. In these 6 verses, I have described truth about Lord Chaitanya, whereas in the next 5, I have described the glory of Lord Nityananda. Ara dui shloke advaita tattvakayayana ara eka shloke pancha tattvara vrakyana. The next 2 verses describe the truth of Advaita Prabhu, and the following verses describes the Panchatattva, the Lord, his plenary portions, his incarnations, his energies, and his devotees. E choda shloke kari mangala charana tani madhya kahi shaba vasturni rampana. The 14 verses therefore offer auspicious invocations and describe the supreme truth. Shab Shruta Vaishnavera Kari Namaskara E Shaba Shlokera Kari Artha Vichara. I offer my obeisances unto all my Vaishnava readers as I begin to explain the intricacies of all these verses. Shakala Vaishnava Suna Kari Kamana Chaitanya Krishnera Shastra Mata Nirupana. I request all my Vaishnava readers to read and hear with rapt attention this narration of Sri Chaitanya as inculcated in the revealed scriptures. Lord Chaitanya is the absolute truth, Krishna himself. This is this is substantiated by the evidence from the authentic scriptures. Sometimes people accept a man as God on the basis of their whimsical sentiments and without reference to the revealed scriptures. But the author of Chaitanya Charitamrta proves all his statements by citing the Shastras. Thus, he establishes that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna Guru Bhakti Shakti Avatara Prakasha Krishna Echai Rupa Karena Vilasha. Lord Krishna enjoys by manifesting himself as the spiritual masters, the devotees, the diverse energies, the incarnations, and the plenary portions. They are all 6 in one. E chatyatat kari charana vandana pratama samnaye kari mangala charana. I therefore worship the lotus feet of these 6 diversities of the one truth by invoking their benedictions. Vandena Guru Isha Bhaktan Isham Ishvantarakan Tat Prakamscha Tat Chakrite Krishna Chaitanya Samrajakaram. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual masters, devotees of the Lord's incarnations, his plenary portions, his energies, and the primeval Lord himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has composed this Sanskrit verse for the beginning of his book, and now he will explain in detail. He offers his respectful obeisances to the 6 principles of the absolute truth. Gurun is a plural in number because anyone who gives spiritual instructions based on the revealed scriptures is accepted as spiritual master. Although others give help in showing the way to beginners, the guru who first initiates one with the Mahamantra is to be known as the initiator, and the saints who give instructions for progressive advancement in Krishna consciousness are called instructing spiritual masters. The initiating and the instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. Although they are although they have different dealings, their functions is to guide the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami accepted Nityananda Prabhu and the 6 Goswamis in the category of guru. Isha Bhaktan refers to the devotees of the Lord like Sri Srivasa and all other such followers who are energy of the Lord and are qualitatively non-different from him. Ishvatarkan refers to the acharyas like Advaita Prabhu, who is an avatara of the Lord. Tat Praksan indicates the direct manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nityananda Prabhu, and the initiating spiritual master. Tak Charite refers to the spiritual energies, Shaktis of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gadadha, Damodar, and Jagadananda, who belong to these category of internal energy. The 6 principles are differently manifested but all equally worshipable. Krishnadas Kaviraj begins by offering his obeisances onto them to teach us the method of worshipping Lord Chaitanya. The external potency of Godhead, called Maya, can never associate with the Lord, just as darkness cannot remain in the presence of light. Yet darkness, being but an illusory and temporary covering of light, has no existence independent of light. Mantra Guru Arayata Shiksha Guru Ghana Danhara Charane Age Karya Vandhana. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master and all my instructing spiritual masters. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami in his thesis Bhakti Sandarbha 202 has stated that the uncontaminated devotional service is the objective of pure Vaishnavas, and that one has to execute such service in the association of other devotees. By associating with devotees of Lord Krishna, one develops a sense of Krishna consciousness and thus becomes inclined towards loving service of the Lord. This is the process of approaching the Supreme Lord by gradual appreciation of devotional service. If one desires unalloyed devotional service, one must associate with devotees of Sri Krishna, for by association only can a conditioned soul achieve taste of transcendental love, and thus revive his eternal relation with God, with Godhead, in a specific manifestation and in terms of the specific transcendental mellows, rasa, that one has eternally inert in him. If one develops love of Krishna by Krishna consciousness activities, one can know the supreme absolute truth. But he who tries to understand God simply by logical arguments will not succeed, nor will he get a taste for unalloyed devotion. The The secret is that one must submissively listen to those who know perfectly the science. The secret is that where am I going? Sorry. The secret is that one must submissively listen to those who know perfectly the science of God, and one must begin the mode of service regulated by the preceptor. A devotee already attracted by the name, form, qualities of the Supreme Lord may be directed to his specific manner of devotional service. He needs not waste time in approaching the Lord through logic. The expert spiritual master knows well how to engage the disciple's energy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and thus he engages the devotee in the specific devotional service according to the specific tendency. A devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master, because in the scriptures, acceptance of more than one is always forbidden. There is no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. Generally, spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in his endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is properly initiated may present himself as a great devotee, but in fact he is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on his path of progress towards spiritual realization, with the result that he must continue his term of material existence without relief. Such helpless persons is compared to a ship without a rudder. For such a ship can never reach its destination. It is imperative, therefore, that one accept a spiritual master if he at all desires to gain the favor of the Lord. The service of a spiritual master is essential. If there is no chance to serve the spiritual master directly, a devotee should serve him by remembering his instructions. There is no difference between the spiritual master's instructions and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of the disciple. If one thinks that he is above consulting anyone else, including a spiritual master, he is at once an offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. Such an offender can never go back to Godhead. It is imperative that the serious persons accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of such strict instructions. Sri Jiva Goswami advises that one cannot accept spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary social and you say that word? Ecclesiastical conventions. Excuse me. One should simply try to find genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. Text 36. Sri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Gunata. In the instructing spiritual masters are Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Bhatta Raghunatha, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Echai Gaura Shiksha Guru Ye Amara Dahashabara Pade Padme Koti Namaskara. These six are my instructing spiritual masters, and therefore I offer millions of respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. By accepting the six Goswamis as the instructing spiritual masters, and the author specifically makes it clear that one should not be recognized as a Gaudiya Vaishnava if he is not obedient to them. Text 38. Bhagavanera bhaktiyata shivasa pradhana dashabhara padma padma sahasra pranama. There are innumerable devotees of the Lord, of whom Srivas Thakur is the foremost. I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times unto their lotus feet. Advaita Charya Prabhura Hamsa Vatara Dhanara Padma Padma Koti Pranati Amara. Advaita Charya is the Lord's partial incarnation, and therefore I offer my obeisances millions of times at his lotus feet. Nityanandaraya Prabhura Sharupa Prakasha Tanhara Padma Padma Vandu Janara Muni Dhasa. Srila Nityananda Rama is the plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I have been initiated by him. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Gadadhara Panditadhi Prabhura Nija Shakti Danshabhara Charane Mora Sahasra Pranati. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the internal potencies of the Lord, of whom Sri Gadadhar Prabhu is the foremost. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Swayam Bhagavan Tanhara Padhara Vinde Ananta Pranama. Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the personality of Godhead himself, and therefore I offer my innumerable prostrations at his lotus feet. Savarane Prabhura Kariya Namar Kara E Chaya Tenho Jai Che Kariya Vichara. Having offered obeisances unto the Lord and all his associates, I shall now try to explain these 6 diversities in one. There are many unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of whom are considered associates surrounding the Lord. Krishna should be worshipped with his devotees, the diverse principles, and therefore the eternal paraphernalia through which the absolute truth can be approached. Yadyapi amara guru chaitanya dhasha tat bijanyami tanhara prakasa. Although I know that my spiritual master is the servitor of Sri Chaitanya, I know him also as a plenary manifestation of the Lord. Purport: every living entity is essentially a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the spiritual master is also his servant. Still, the spiritual master is direct manifestation of the Lord. With this conviction, a disciple can advance in Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master is non-different from Krishna because he is a manifestation of Krishna. Lord Nityananda, who is Balarama himself, the first direct manifestation or expansion of Krishna, is the original spiritual master. He helps Lord Krishna in his pastimes, and he is servant of the Lord. Every living entity is internally his servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Therefore, the spiritual master cannot be other than servant of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master's eternal occupation is to expand the service of the Lord by training disciples in the service of attitude, in a service attitude. A spiritual master never possesses the supreme. A spiritual master never poses as the Supreme Lord himself. He is considered a representative of the Lord. The revealed scriptures prohibit one's pretending to be God, but a bona fide spiritual master is a most faithful, confidential servant of the Lord, and therefore deserves as much respect as Krishna. Guru Krishna Rupahana Shastira Pramane Guru Rupe Krishna Kripa Karena Bhakta Ghane. Translation: according to the deliberate opinion of all revealed scriptures, the spiritual master is non-different from Krishna. Lord Krishna, in the form of the spiritual master, delivers his devotees. The relationship of a disciple with his spiritual master is as good as his relationship with the Supreme Lord. His spiritual master always represents himself as the humblest servitor of the personality of Godhead, but the disciple must look upon him as the manifested representation of Godhead. Acharyam mam vijanam Acharyam mam vijaniyam narvam minyata karichit Mamatyaya buddhayasyote sarvadeva manyoyo guru. One should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Purport. This is a verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Lord Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. He was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. The spiritual master is also called Acharya, or the transcendental professor of spiritual science. The Manu Samhita explains the duties of an Acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. The ceremony performed to initiate a disciple onto the study of spiritual science is called Upaniti. For the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master, one who cannot be brought nearer to the spiritual master cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Sudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahman, Kshatriya, or Vaishya is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. It is worth nothing if worn merely to boast of high parentage. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread of ceremony. And after this samskara, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born of Sudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahman. If he finds himself perfectly qualified in the Vayu Purana, Acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literatures, explains the purpose of the Vedas, abides by their rules and regulations, and teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of the Acharya, there is no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the supreme personality of Servitor Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee who is called Acharya Vigraha, or the manifestation of form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself as an Acharya, but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender. And this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an Acharya. The bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by this test, he is known to be direct manifestation of the Lord and genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Such a spiritual master is known as Acharya Deva. Influenced by an envious temperament and dissatisfied because of an attitude of sense gratification, Mundaners criticize a real acharya. In fact, however, a bona fide acharya is non-different from the personality of Godhead, and therefore to envy such an acharya is to envy the personality of Godhead himself. This will produce an effect subversive to transcendental realization. As mentioned previously, a disciple should always respect the spiritual master and manifestation of Sri Krishna, but at the same time, one should always remember that spiritual master is never authorized to imitate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. False spiritual masters pose themselves as identical with Sri Krishna in every respect to exploit the sentiments of their disciples, but such impersonalities can only mislead their disciples. For their ultimate aim is to become one with the Lord. This is against the principles of devotional cult. The real Vedic philosophy is Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which establishes everything to be simultaneously one with and different from the personality of Godhead. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami confirms that this is the real position of a bona fide spiritual master and says that one should always think of the spiritual master in the terms of his intimate relationship with Mukunda, Sri Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha 213 has clearly defined that the pure devotee's observation of the spiritual master and Lord Shiva as one with the personality of Godhead exists in terms of their being very dear to the Lord, not identical with him in all respects. Following in the footsteps of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami, later acharyas like Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur have confined the same truths. In his prayers to the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that all the revealed scripture accepts the spiritual master to be identical with the personality of Godhead because he is very dear and confidential servant of the Lord. Gaudiya Vaishnavas therefore worship Srila Gurudeva, the spiritual master, in the light of his being the servitor of the personality of Godhead. In all the ancient literatures of devotional service, and in the more recent songs of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and other unalloyed Vaishnavas, the spiritual master is always considered either one of the confidential associates of Srimati Radharani or a manifested representation of Srila Nityananda Prabhu. Text 47. Shiksha Guru Keta Jhani Krishnara Sarupa Antaryami Bhakti Shishta Edui Rupa. Translation: one should know the instructing spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord. Purport: Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states that the instructing spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna himself teaches us as the instructing spiritual master from within and without. From within, he teaches us Paramatma, our constant companion, and from without, he teaches from Bhagavad Gita as the instructing spiritual master. There are two kinds of instructing spiritual masters. One is the liberated person, fully absorbed in the meditation and devotional service, and the other is he who invokes a disciple's spiritual consciousness by means of relevant instructions. Thus, the instructions in the science of devotion are differentiated in the terms of the objective and subjective ways of understanding the acharyas in the true sense of the term. Who is authorized to deliver Krishna enriches the disciple with full spiritual knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. When by learning from the self-realized spiritual master one actually engages himself in the service of Lord Vishnu, functional devotional service begins. The procedures of his devotional service are known as abhidya, or action or action one is duty-bound to perform. Our only shelter is the Supreme Lord, and one teaches how to approach Krishna is the functioning form of the personality of Godhead. There is no difference between the shelter given Supreme Lord and the initiating, instructing spiritual masters. If one foolishly discriminates between them, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. Srila Sanatana Goswami is the ideal spiritual master, for he delivers one the shelter of the lotus feet of Madana Mohan. Even though one may be unable to travel to the field of Vrindavan due to forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can get an adequate opportunity to stay in Vrindavan and derive all spiritual benefits by the mercy of Sanatana Goswami. Sri Govindaji acts exactly like Shikshaguru, instructing spiritual master by teaching Arjuna Bhagavad Gita. He is the original preceptor, for he gives us instructions and opportunity to serve him. The initiating spiritual master is a personal manifestation of Srila Madana Mohan Vigraha, whereas the instructing spiritual master is a personal representative of Srila Govindadev Vigraha. Both of these deities are worshipped at Vrindavan. Srila Gopinath is the ultimate attraction in spiritual realization. Text 48. Naiva payanti apchitim kavyasya tavesha brahmayayosyapi kritam radha mudha smarantaha yo natar bahistano britam asubham vidyana acharya chaitanya vapsu savghatim vyayanaikti. Translation: O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their in-depthness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as a super soul, to deliver the embodied living beings by directing him how to come to you. Purport. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.29.6, was spoken by Sri Uddhava after he heard from Sri Krishna all necessary instructions about yoga. Desam satata yoktanam bhajajatam prititi purvakam dhadmi bhudi yogam tam yenamam upyayanti te. Translation: to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. This verse of Bhagavad Gita 10.10 clearly states how Govindadeva instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment in theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee who thus relishes his eternally transcendental mellows. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. They know that the supreme truth, the all-spiritual and all-powerful person, is one without a second and fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations, such as pure devotees, always merged in the knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists, exchange their views and discuss their results of their research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotee with all enlightenment. Text 50. Yata brahmane bhagavan swayam upadisyayanam bhavitam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, taught Brahma and made him self-realized. Purport: the English maximum that God helps those who help themselves is also applicable in the transcendental realm. There are many instances in revealed scripture of the personality of Godhead acting as a spiritual master from within. He was the spiritual master who instructed Brahma, the original living being in the cosmic creation. When Brahma was first created, he could not apply his creative energy to arrange the cosmic situation. At first, there was only sound, vibrating the word tapa, which indicates the acceptance of hardships. For spiritual realization, refraining from sensual enjoyment, one should voluntarily accept all sorts of difficulty for spiritual realization. This is called tapasya. An enjoyer of the senses can never realize godliness or the science of theistic knowledge. Thus, when Brahma, initiated by Sri Krishna by the sound vibration tapa, engaged himself in acts of austerity, by the pleasure of Vishnu, he was able to visualize the transcendental world, Sri Vaikuntha. Though transcendental realization, modern science can communicate using material discoveries such as radio, television, and computers, but the science involved in the austerities of Sri Brahma, the original father of mankind, was still more subtle. In time, material scientists may also know the potency of the Supreme Lord and the personality of Godhead, answered his inquiry. In the following 6 consecutive statements, these instructions, which are reproduced, inquired about inquiring. The following 6 consecutive statements, these instructions, which are reproduced in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.3136, were imparted by the personality of Godhead, acting as a supreme spiritual master. Text 51. Text 51. Janam pararam gunyam me vadvyana samavaitam sahasrayam tad agam cha grahana ghaitam maya. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you, for transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but also full of mysteries. Purport: transcendental knowledge of Sri Krishna is deeper than the impersonal knowledge of Brahman, for it includes knowledge of not only his form and personality, but also everything else related to him. There is nothing in existence not related with Sri Krishna. In a sense, there is nothing but Sri Krishna, and yet nothing is Sri Krishna, save and except his primeval personality. This knowledge constitutes a complete transcendental science, and Vishnu wanted to give Brahmaji full knowledge about that science. The mystery of the knowledge culminates in personal attachment to the Lord, with a resulting effect of detachment from anything non-Krishna. There are 9 alternative transcendental means to attain this stage: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, assisting, fraternizing with the Lord, and sacrificing everything to him. These are different parts of the same devotional service, which is full of transcendental mystery. The Lord said the Lord said to Brahma that since he was pleased with him by his grace, the mystery was being revealed. Text 52. Yavamaham yato bhavo yad rupa guno karmakaha tataiva tattva vijanam astu tadmad anugrabhat. Translation. By the causeless mercy, by the enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. The transcendental personal form of the Lord are a mystery, and the symptoms of these forms, which are absolutely different from anything made of mundane elements, are also mysterious. The innumerable forms of the Lords, such as Syamasundara Narayan Rama, are Gaura Sundar. The colors of these forms, white, red, yellow, and cloud-like Syama, and others, his qualities as the responsive personality of Godhead to pure devotees and as impersonal Brahman to dry speculators, his uncommon activities like lifting Govardhan Hill, marrying more than 16,000 queens of Dwarka, and entering the rasa dance with the damsels of Raja, expanding himself in as many forms as there were damsels in this dance. These are innumerable, and other uncommon acts and attributes are all mysteries, one aspect of which is presented in the scientific knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is read and adorned all over the world by all classes of scholars, which as many interpretations as there are empiric philosophers. The truth of these mysteries are revealed to Brahma by a descending process without the help of the ascending one. His mercy descends to the devotee like Brahma, and through Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, from Vyasadeva to Sukadev, and so on, in a bona fide chain of disciplic succession. We cannot discover the mysteries of the Lord by our mundane endeavors. They are only revealed by the grace to the proper devotees. These mysteries are gradually disclosed to the various grades of devotees in proportion to the gradual development of their service attitude. In other words, impersonalities who depend upon the strength of their poor fund of knowledge and morbid speculative habits without submission and service in the forms of hearing, chanting, and other mentioned above cannot penetrate to the mysteries of religion, of transcendence, where the supreme truth is a transcendental person, free from all things, free from all tinges of the material elements. Discovering the mystery of the Lord eliminates the impersonal feature realized by the common spiritualists who are merely trying to enter the spiritual religion from the mundane platform. Aham evasyam evragri nadyat yat sat asat param paschat aham yat etakcha yo vasyeta sosmi aham. Prior to the cosmic creation, only I exist and no phenomena exist, either gross, subtle, or primordial. After creation, only I exist in everything, and after annihilation, only I remain eternally. Purport. Aham means I. Therefore, the speaker who is saying Aham, I, must have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word Aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. These Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word Aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. These Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that Aham means I, and I refers to the personality, therefore personality of Godhead. Speaking to Brahma, uses aham while describing his own transcendental form. Jai Tulasi Maharani ki Jai. Jai Prabhu for bringing the Tulasi. Jai Satish Prabhu. Ji Jai. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else. Before the creation and after his dissolution, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates exist. There is no existence for the material elements. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Vasudevo Vamidam Agramasinam Brahmonam Scha Sankara. The meaning of this mantra is that before creation there is no existence of Brahma or Shiva, for only Vishnu existed. Vishnu exists in his abode. The Vaikunthas, there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and on the Vaikunthas there are each of them, Vishnu resides with his associates and his paraphernalia. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that although the creation is periodically dissolved, there is another abode which is never dissolved. The word creation refers to the material creation because in the spiritual world, everything exists eternally. And there is no creation or dissolution. The Lord indicates herein that therefore the material creation, before the material creation, he existed in fullness with all transcendental opulences, including all strength, all wealth, all beauty, all knowledge, all fame, and all renunciation. If one thinks of a king, he automatically thinks of his secretaries, ministers, militaries, commanders, places, and so on. Since a king has such opulences, one can simply try to imagine the opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Lord says aham, therefore it is to be understood that he exists with full potencies, including all opulences. The word yat refers to Brahman, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. In the Brahma Samhita it is said, Tad Brahman Niskalam Anantam Isha Shambhutam. The Brahman effulgence expands unlimitedly, just as the sun is localized planet. Although the sunshine expands unlimitedly from the source, so the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But his effulgence of energy, Brahman, expands unlimitedly. From that Brahman energy, the creation appears, just as a cloud appears in sunshine. From that cloud comes rain, from the rain comes vegetation, and from that vegetation comes fruits and flowers, which are the basis of subsistence for the many other forms of life. Similarly, the effulgent bodily luster of the Supreme Lord is the cause of the creation of the infinite universes. The Brahman effulgence is impersonal, but the cause of the energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him, in his abode, the Vaikunthas, the Brahmajyoti emanates. He is never impersonal. Since they cannot understand the source of the Brahman energy, the impersonalists mistakenly choose to think this impersonal Brahman the ultimate or absolute goal. But as stated in the Upanishads, one has to penetrate the impersonal effulgence to see that the face of the Supreme Lord. If one desires to reach the source of the sunshine, he has to travel through the sunshine to reach the sun, and then meet the predominating deity there. The absolute truth is the Supreme Personality, Bhagavan. As the Srimad Bhagavatam explains, Sat means effect, Asat means cause, and the Param refers to the ultimate truth, which is the transcendental to the cause and effect. The cause of the creation is called It's just they're motor skills. They're just developing, and they get mixed with emotions. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I was captivated by the cuteness. Cuteness. We should stand up. Normally, you're supposed to stand up when you do magic like that. I don't know where you were, mate. It's not in here. It's somewhere else. Alright, well, let me change the.
It's a bit cold, eh? Good reading, nice reading, eh?
Good, very nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, topic, very good topic, right? Which chapter? It's so elaborate and from here.
No, this is Adilila.
Which?
Prabhupada is this chapter one. Prabhupada, the bit I read before is the introduction.
Yeah.
It's really long, but
I know, but it's one.
yeah, it's so nice.
It's summary of so many things.
Yeah.
These are not.
You know, today I was reading, from the book, and it said, it's like obvious
Oh
stuff.
yeah, are they straight?
But like,
Not really, right?
what happened? Yeah, it makes such a
You
nice
told us.
difference. You know what I read today?
It's not, huh?
You know when this is quite other stuff, but you know when he obviously enjoys the devotees.
Nee.
So the primary way he does that is he expands himself, which is pleasure potency, which is Srimati Radharani. You know what that means? It means there's an email.
Yeah, seems better, huh?
Now better?
His happiness is within himself.
Just turn your head.
It's not like us. When you try to enjoy,
Yeah, it looks better, it's more.
it's not me.
I think it's bad.
It doesn't look like it's himself.
Well, she's not looking.
It's himself. It's just like, and he's not attached to nothing. Because he is
It's like a
everything,
herb.
and everything is within himself.
Absolutely.
That's the big
Are you
difference. But when we do that, when we try to do that, when we try to imitate
You seem a
that,
little bit tired.
Yeah.
It's just it, yeah, you didn't sleep well.
it's stupid, silly, wasting time.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
you
imagine
didn't
you're playing with shadow. It's not the real thing.
No, that's why I could get
Meditation.
this morning. But yeah, anxiety, but you slept well, at least. So it's good.
No, because you know,
You need to leave your place at
he's
5.
reading about,
No.
Prabhupada's talking about,
On the Bible.
They look at that stuff, because now, I saw something, they posted this book, Gita, please, get this book, it's amazing.
Morning, right? I should know this now.
It sounds a lot like, I was like, just some device, it's sad. It's like, yeah, someone puts a sad, they put a sad face, a comment.
He's such a cute.
Bhakti. How can you say this?
So we can see
This is written by,
yeah, the
what's his name? It's written by, that, you know,
No.
who sings that song?
We still can't open this, right? The whole day.
Oh, really?
I won't ask
He
you.
wrote that.
No,
He wrote that book.
I like to.
Now, he wrote that book, but you know, he's a pure devotee. She just went there, left, and she just turned up. Some woman. She's good. It's funny, yeah? So the guy goes, yeah, but this was written by How can you say that? It's so offensive. And the thing is, he wrote that, but that's for very advanced devotees. You know? People that already know so much. They have like a lot of, yeah. And actually, you know, Guru, they've already said, don't need to learn that because it will be revealed in your heart. But if we go out and get out from the You don't have the proper understanding to begin with. I mean, I'd rather not. I just find it funny. It's like, this guy's dishing it out.
Why is he recommending that one above all other ones? So he likes that one, but he doesn't like the one who says...
Because you know, I'm sure Prabhupada, he says, people that dabble in that stuff, they're stuck in they're still stuck in the sense enjoyment stuff. So then they get attracted to that.
If you're tired of holding it, you just think him and goes well. But if you're not tired, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Because she tries to escape when the door is open.
Don't escape. She looks so cute.
Says something else. Very much. We're not members. We're not members of the Sacred Cow Society. Because you know, the devotees, there's all these cows that have been killed, it's really sad, it's kind of you though. When you say things, I just go, it's like posting on Facebook, all these videos, like really extreme, heavy stuff, which is really sad. And one guy's like, Prabhu, do you know, that totally ruined my day. You're preaching to the wrong people. No, obviously, you want to speak, you shouldn't try to start with like to speak of showing. Sit down. No, actually, yes. Use it a bit stuck. It can track.
Try hard to actually
Use it
picture of her like this,
to find your phone. It's annoying. Two, you can use it to track your exercise. Like, I'm going to do skip. I did like a honey.
¿Sabes cómo es online?
But this one, I take this one. Nice. Jai Sri Purnima ki Jai. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Divine Appearance Day ki Jai.